what your choices have been, and what karmic timelines and contracts you have journeyed. The light is calling for the reunification of all aspects of life in this realm now. It is calling for the cleansing of all polarities. It is calling for the rising of all sacred heart centers now. All are being summoned home to the greater light now. Hi, and welcome to Whole Soul Mastery's Live Well, Live Whole podcast series, where we focus on mind, body, spirit, wellness, fitness, and wholeness, and integrating polarity within so that we can access higher states of light and unity consciousness. I'm Marie Mohler, and I'm an author, channel, and a host of the Whole Soul Mastery podcast series. And I'm here today with Patrick Chevalier, who is a certified master practitioner in NLP. He's a level 3 Reiki practitioner. He's certified in psychophysiological coherence with Heartmath, and he has a university certificate in youth intervention and a major in communication sciences. He is a seeker in the hero's journey and a student and teacher of life's great lessons. And he lives in Montreal, Canada. And I want to welcome you today, Patrick. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Marie, for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here with you today.
It is. It's so good. And I'm so excited to talk more about Heartmath because it's something that I hear a lot about. A number of people that I'm connected with have gone through their training programs. My partner teaches some of their wisdom and their insights in the work that she does as a life coach. And I'd love to, maybe we can start just by hearing you share a little bit about your journey to Heartmath and the training and experiences that you've had there.
Okay. Well, yes, sure. My pleasure. So I've always been really interested in everything that has to do with personal growth and even psychology when I was younger. And I did always suffer from anxiety and stress. Um, I worked for more than 20 years in a big corporate company, in a telecom company. So it was very political, very businessy, and didn't really fit who I am, although I didn't really know it at the time. And that's where the incoherence was in my
Right.
life. Yeah. And I had a chance in 2014 to have a friend, a partner actually, that suggested I attend this workshop for a whole weekend. And that was really a big moment in my life where you touch something within yourself, this light that is right there, and there's like this opening that happens, and it's like opening a door that you can never really close again, and that's where the journey really becomes interesting.
It
So,
does become
mhm,
interesting. And I think what's so important, and I've experienced it many times in my life, is the
mhm,
saying yes to that, right?
exactly.
It's that partner seeded that opportunity in your consciousness, but some people, it just passes right on by. But
Hmm.
then, when we're even if we're not fully aware of the universal principles, the universe, which is a conscious living universe, is always guiding us. And if we can learn to listen and pay attention, these invitations do find us. And when
Yes,
your partner seeded that opportunity in your awareness and you said yes, it opened the door, right? It
it
opened
did.
the door to more. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And like you said, and the universe will support you in this, right?
Yeah.
The minute you say yes, then it'll start to happen. Little things will be given to you, put into your life for you to move forward in that direction.
Yeah.
Even though sometimes it might not look it's something good, it actually always turns out to be. Like in 2016, lost my job in a telecom company after those 20 years. And it was a big shock, but it's like something, the minute that I realized that's what was happening, is like this is exactly what I needed. because I was 2 years after I did that workshop, and it was just, I knew I needed to do something more. And that's when I went back to school, went back to university to do that certificate in youth intervention, studied NLP, Reiki, heart coherence, and it just eventually brought me to you. And
Right?
yes, and
Right?
continuing working on ourselves. Because what's fun about taking these courses and taking this training is that you actually, while learning all those techniques, you practice them yourself. And then it just unblocks things within you, and it opens you up, not only to yourself, but eventually also to others, and to be able to help others.
Right?
And that's what's really wonderful about it.
It is wonderful. And I want to
Mm,
get into a little bit more about heart math, but I just want to say it is interesting. It's like you talked about your former life, your job, in
mhm.
telecommunications for those
Mhm.
years, and that was maybe more of the experience of incoherence. And that also as a teacher, the contrasts of our lives are our
Oh
teachers,
yeah.
right? And then when those doors open, I think because we've had those experiences, we're more willing to say yes to something
Mhm.
new that maybe if we hadn't had those other experiences, we wouldn't have been as open to that.
Mhm.
But then you feel the universe that is always guiding and supporting us, right, to
Oh
live our
yeah.
best path. And those of us that can say this door is closing, but wait, this door is opening, right? And if
Mhm.
it feels at all attractive to us, if we just step in, we have no idea the infinite possibilities that are opening to us. And where, some other people in your position might have seen their life or what they thought they should be doing, what they'd been funneled into, with their degree and their work experience. And, we just think that this is what we're supposed to be doing.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
when something comes and shakes that up, right? And you experience the loss of a job or any other kind of life event or circumstances that changes the direction that you were going in, if we can embrace life as an adventure, these things come
Yes.
to us and these expansions come to us. And you had the opportunity then, it sounds like, for a couple of years to, dip your toes in the water and explore more things that you might have been curious about. Maybe some of them you didn't even know about yet, that they started finding you as you were saying yes to one thing, more of those opportunities were opening to you. And here we are
Mhm.
having this conversation today. And I want to thank, whoever laid you off. I want to thank whoever was responsible for that, because we have the gem right now. The fruits of that have manifested in this conversation. And that's the way I choose to see things in my life when things shake up like that, when something I thought that was meant to happen or seemed aligned to happen or that was dematerializing out of my life. I just understand now there's something better. There's something more aligned for me now.
And I love what you just said. And the fact that you're able to see it that way, that we allow ourselves, or that we're able to be to see it that way, to say yes, and to see it as a good thing, actually, it actually directly goes into what we're going to be talking about today. Like, how can we learn about new tools to put us in a state of being, state of thinking, that will allow us to say yes more easily, and
Mm,
to see it, um, less as a negative stress, and more as a, um, just a situation, and even perhaps an opportunity. you
yes,
know so
exactly.
practicing coherence is actually one of the tools that allows us to do that.
Yeah. Well, so tell us a little bit about heart math. I know very little, but I know I studied them just a little bit before we got on this
Mhm.
call, and I know that they've
Mhm.
been around for practicing the science and the study of the heart's intuitive intelligence for about
Yes.
25 years. And I was surprised to learn it's been around as long as that. So, they've been able to measure something that for so long, a lot of people might say, if I can't see it, I don't believe it. Well, now they have these
Yes.
measurements and these tools,
Yes.
right, where they can show that the unseen is actually, in some ways, maybe even more real than what we see. And so,
Mhm.
it truly, and I went to their website and I loved bathing in some of the offerings they have there, and how they
Mhm.
so they're just so at one with what they know. And when you go
Mhm.
there, I actually started, I think I just started breathing in coherence, which we're going to talk about. But
Yes.
my pulse, relaxed. And I just felt
Mhm.
this place of calm when I was just reading the text on their website about how the heart and the brain are working together. And yeah, so share a little bit about the essence of heart math as you understand it, and yeah, take us from there.
So the HeartMath Institute, like you said, has been here for a very long time. And what I love about HeartMath, and even about, I'm not going to talk about quantum physics here, but just to mention the field of quantum physics and HeartMath and even NLP up to a certain point. For me, it's like NLP, which is based on neurosciences. So it's actually based on a real science of the brain and neurons and how everything works. So all these things are catching up slowly to our different, I'm going to say, spiritual beliefs that we have. When we talk about energy and things like that, even when we talk about the memory of water, and all these same science is starting to give proof of different things. Where is the importance of the heart? I will talk about that. I'll talk about brain cells in the heart, for example, uh, which shows you how much the heart can become the conductor of our
Yeah.
entire being. And HeartMath has been studying this and proving more and more the power of the heart. And so this is where coherence comes from. And
Mm,
yeah.
yeah, it's so beautiful. I hadn't thought about it until you just talked about that, and the brain that's in the heart, right?
Mhm.
And the intelligence that is. And I wrote a book called The Knight and His Armored Heart. And it's, we can call it a children's book, but it's really a message for people of all ages,
Yeah.
because a lot of adults have forgotten this. But it's a story about a knight who is so committed to his knightly self, and knights only chase dragons and live in their castles all alone, right, and is very powerful because of all of that. And but yet every day he would stand out on his terrace and he would look at the villagers playing and laughing and connecting and visiting, and he would long to be one of them. But then he'd say, but no, knights are so powerful and they live in their castles
Right.
and they chase
Mhm.
dragons, right? And all that, those cognitive stories he would tell himself, which was everything, you know in the opposite of what his heart truly wanted. And so in the story he goes through this journey of melting his armor and listening to his heart brain. I mean, that's one of the last lines of the book, is that he listens to his heart brain. He skips down the hill, right? He's left his armor behind, and he lives among the villagers, which is what he always wanted. And we all want that oneness and that connection with other people, and to feel that interconnectedness, and to not be so walled off. And when we don't have this understanding of the power and the intuition and the intelligence in our heart centers, we do live in many ways more isolated or separated from other people, because when we're in our minds and we're up in our heads all the time, we are disconnected ourselves. The disconnection is inside our own bodies, it's inside our
Yes.
own consciousness.
Yes.
And I think heart math, and I know you're going to share more today, it helps bridge that gap. Many people have talked about the 18-inch journey from our heads to our hearts, right?
Mhm.
And that's what we're going to do, is we're going to drop down and into our heart centers. And that's what I'd invite our listeners, is if you're listening, our minds are engaged in this conversation, those listening, but our hearts can really be receiving, because our hearts are tapped into so much of what we're going to talk about. And I want to see this point, because I think you'll talk about this too. But for so long we've been trained in our educational systems that it's our brains that can form every other aspect of our experience and our physicality, that our brains give our instructions to our heart, our brains give our instructions to our feelings and everything else. But heart math is actually showing through science the opposite, that it's the heart, right? I actually wrote a note down that they offer a scientific understanding of the higher quality emotions that people always associated with the heart, that really do affect the way the heart beats and the quality of the neural
Yes.
signals being sent to the brain, which it then interprets. And they go on to say that the heart and the brain are in constant communication. The
Yes.
heart is doing most of the talking. I love that. I love that. And that's that part of us that also is a higher consciousness that knows how to listen so that we can
Yes.
recognize when opportunities are knocking at our door, because the mind might just miss it, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wish that we give um, people the opportunity to empower their hearts,
Mm.
you know, with what we're going to be talking about today. And it's going to be interesting because I am going to, it's like the energy of my conversation and what I'm going to present to you starts really heavily in the brain, but eventually you feel it move to the heart. And that's where I want us to end today, you
Yeah.
know, to empower the heart. And um, because the brain is a powerful tool, we just got to learn to um, make it work with our hearts and with our light,
Yeah.
not to say soul, but with our light. and there can be such a beautiful balance and complement complementary
Complementary.
between the two.
Yes.
Yeah, between the two.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's very synergistic,
There you go.
versus that the brain is the
Hmm.
all powerful being inside, essence inside us that's
Yes.
doling out instructions to everything else. And that really, I do think we've been trained in our conditioning, in our cultures, and also in our learning in school, that it is just mechanical, right? That it's more mechanistic, it's more machine like. And that is amazing because that completely disregards that spiritual energy, that spirit or that soul, or that living life force inside us that is truly what animates us. And conversations like these bring that awareness back into
Mm,
people's hearts, right? Anybody listening to this, they're like, we're all bathing in this frequency of giving ourselves permission
mm,
right now to increase this understanding in our own lives, to live
yes.
from this place where our heart is that, I always like to say, the wise, all knowing heart center, right? And it is kind of our masculine and feminine aspects inside us. It is this center that connects us with everyone and everything. And the mind is not designed to be that. It is actually a receiver, right? And then it implements the instructions it receives. And
There you go.
right?
Where does it get the information from, the instruction from?
Yeah.
That's what we need to readjust now.
Right?
Has to be from there.
Yeah. Yeah, so take us on a little bit of a journey. Tell us a little bit
Okay.
more about, this. I know you brought up NLP having its uh, origins in the neurology,
Neurosciences.
neurosciences, right? And Heartmath the same. So, yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, lead us a little bit.
Okay, let's go.
Let's do it.
Yeah, I figured it would be a good way to talk about coherence, and to start with understanding a little bit more about what stress is. Because, the point of all of this is to, if we understand a little bit more about what stress is within us and what it does to our bodies, we can understand a little bit more of the power of coherence and the benefit of coherence, and how exactly to have the conductor move from the brain. We'll talk specifically about what in the brain, but to move the conductor of our lives from the brain to the heart, and having the brain do the actual job it was supposed to do, which
Right?
is support us in this and be the receiver and implementer,
Yes.
manifester of
Yes.
the energy,
All those
the
things.
instructions the heart gives. Yes,
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
So stress. What is stress? Um, Theoretically, what is stress for you, Marie? Actually, tell me what is stress for you?
Hmm. I would say stress. I mean, interesting. I would say stress happens when I'm not aligned and I'm not listening.
Not
So
listening.
stress, it could be anything in my environment, but usually
Yes.
those two things are involved. I'm not aligned
Hmm.
and I'm not listening to myself or others in some way
Hmm.
in that moment. Um, so that and that out of alignment feeling, I'm so sensitive that I feel
Hmm.
that.
You feel
So
that.
yeah, and earlier in my life, stress was more, just in my high school years and growing up and college.
Hmm.
It was a normal part of my life. I mean, everybody was stressed with
Hmm.
final exams or whatever. We think it's normal. But as I've had more experiences in life's journey, I've started to realize it's a communication to me that something's out of alignment. And when I do feel
Right.
stressed, I'm aware of it, I acknowledge it, and then I try and listen. I don't have these heart math tools, but I have my own intuitive tools in my own
Hmm.
way,
Of
and
course.
I allow it to be a cue, like you're
Right.
saying. But what is,
Right.
yeah, stress? Yeah, how do you define stress?
Well, basically, you're absolutely right. Everything you said, that is what stress is. But in the theory we're going to be talking about, stress is anything that you have to face, whether it's other people or events that happens in your life. So it can actually, there is good stress. For example, I have to get up now and go to the bathroom. It's a very easy stress. It's not a dangerous stress,
Right.
but there are other stresses, like for people, let's say you have to do a big presentation, or you have to talk in public. Um, that might be uh, 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 not as good as stress, but on the other hand, some people thrive on this.
Yeah.
They become even better. So there's, how do you measure stress, and how do you measure good or bad stress?
Right.
Now, stress was very useful for us as a human species. I mean, it allowed us to survive the environments and everything that happened for us to get us here. Um, we had to survive, we had to fight, we had to hide, we had to do whatever we needed to do as a species when there were predators outside, and we had to stay in the caves a long, long
Right.
time ago. And so stress was very useful. But nowadays, um, it became something else. Stress was helpful for us to survive when our life was threatened.
Mm,
But
yeah.
I mean, this could be a long philosophical question, but generally, how much our life is really threatened on our day-to-day life. It's
Right.
not really threatened. Um, I want to be careful in what
Yes.
I say, but generally, we're not in danger of being killed every single moment by a predator.
Right. Exactly.
Generally,
It's
yeah.
perception of threat, and
Hmm.
exactly.
Yeah. But our nervous system, it kept the same reflexes. So that's when perception comes into the equation, right? What do we perceive as stress? A person might be very comfortable to speak in public, but another one might be freaking out
Right.
and being very nervous about it,
Right.
so there are these categories of stresses, and in the safe stress category, you still have access to your cortex,
Mm,
to the brain, to the cortex part of your brain,
yeah.
and you're still able to think. You're still able to use rational thought, because when you go into a danger mode, a less safe stress,
Mm,
then it's as if you have less access to your cortex. You're more into the emotion, and you don't have this clear thought as you had when you were very calm.
yeah.
So that's one of the things that happen when you go into a stress mode, a negative stress. So there are three reactions that we have to stress, and you probably heard that before. There's freeze, flight, or fight.
Mm, yes.
So in the not good stress, you have like the danger stress, for which you will react by fight or flight.
Mm,
And you have the danger of death stress. That's when you freeze, like a little rabbit crossing the road, and a car comes along and it just doesn't move, hoping that if he doesn't move, you won't see him and you won't get hurt.
right.
So these are the different reactions that we have to stress. And
Yeah.
that's very important, because coherence will help with that once we get into it.
Nice.
So yeah, I mentioned the cortex, which is where we have our rational thought and all our social skills. And below that, you have the limbic brain. That's the emotional brain. It's much closer to the your backbone, to the vertebrae. So it's much faster. That's the part of the brain that reacts to things, that
Mm,
has emotions. That's the limbic brain.
mm,
And you have the reptilian brain, which is the first part of the brain that was developed. And so when you go into the stress and something stressful happens, and I'm not talking about the safe stress here,
right.
I'm talking about one of the stress that's more danger or that we perceive as danger. Like I said, perception is a big thing.
Right.
Yeah. So there's this part of the limbic brain, which is the amygdala,
Mm,
and it sends a signal to the adrenal glands and releases cortisol in the system. And I'm not going to go further, really much deeper into that physiological cascade of hormones that happens. But cortisol is very important to understand. When it's released, it stays there for a few hours.
mm,
And that's when you lose access to your cortex.
mm,
That's also when you will notice that your hands become clammy.
mm.
That's the hormone that starts the whole process in your body to make sure that all the blood goes into your internal organs and makes you ready to fight or flight.
Wow.
So that's why you have all these, I'm going to say, symptoms of stress when a stress is triggered. And it all starts with the cortisol.
Wow.
And that's the whole sympathetic nervous system that's triggered. That's like we say, the stress process
Mm,
that is triggered. And it usually lasts a few hours, and then the cortisol is dissolved and it just goes away and we go back to normal. Fortunately, we've learned that they did some research and some testing, and they tested thousands of people in our society today, and they noticed that everybody had cortisol in their system,
mm.
a little bit of cortisol. And that means that we are constantly in some stage of the stress process.
Yes.
And we're not surprised about that, right? With
Right.
everything and how the world is made and the pressure all under, we have to work, we have to, make sure that we have a roof over our heads. And with everything that's going on with the world today, I mean, it's like keeping us in this situation where we are maybe not in the high stress level, but constantly in the
Yeah.
stress
It's a
process.
sustained stress.
Yes.
Yeah.
First thing that happens, we lose access to the cortex.
Mm.
So we are less able to think clearly.
Right.
So we can go deep into that situation, keeping us in fear makes sure that we are not able to access our cortex. And that is why,
Yes.
because of this whole stress physiological cascade with the cortisol and all, we
Yes.
are less able to think clearly. And when that lasts a long time and we're constantly under stress, we know how bad it is for our health,
Mm.
right? I mean, it turns into depression, anxiety, and of course, it really impacts the immune system because our body is constantly in the situation ready to fight or flight. So it's not thriving. It's not taking care of itself. It's surviving.
It's surviving.
It's surviving. Everything that has to do with the immune system, whether it's our ability to fight cancer,
Mm.
whether it can be things like digestion problem, Crohn's disease,
Mm.
even Alzheimer's. If you go and read on Alzheimer's, it's actually our brain fighting itself. And
Wow.
eventually, by doing so, breaking the neural connections and breaking down the brain.
Wow.
So there's more of that today. There's more anxiety, more depressions than ever. There's more cancer. There's more immune related disease, Crohn's disease.
Right.
So allergies. people are more allergic to stuff than ever. I mean, this is all things that are eventually triggered when we are under stress.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And many people can feel obviously in that way of helplessness of or they'll seek medications, they'll seek to treat the
Yes.
symptoms they're
Yes.
experiencing and not really the root cause of the stress and the imbalance, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
That's very interesting because when you are stressed and in fear, you don't access your cortex. We get medication, antidepressants, and such.
Right.
So we're calmed down, but
Right.
we don't access our brain the same either,
Right.
right? It does change the
Connect.
neurology of our brains. And so we
Exactly.
do not still have the same access to our emotions and our brain functions as much
Right.
in a way.
Exactly. The medication doesn't repair the connection,
It
right?
does not. It does
Right.
not. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and yet our conditioning, though, in our world has
Hmm.
been largely when you have something that doesn't feel good in your physical body, you go to the expert
Had it
who
fixed.
who then often, not always, but often gives you some kind of a prescription.
Hmm.
And in some ways, I'm not saying all cases, but I'm just saying in some ways that does get us further away from the connection we ultimately intuitively desire, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's a journey, isn't it? It's a process of learning the language that you have. But even if we didn't understand the science of it, I think people know that I feel good inside myself and I feel connected with myself and I feel
Hmm.
present in my life,
Hmm.
or I
Hmm.
feel disconnected. I
Hmm.
feel not aligned. I feel imbalanced. And to me, when we simplify it in those terms, then we're looking at where are the resources or what are people looking to go to for the support that they need. And
Hmm.
this understanding of coherence, this understanding of there are other ways to deal with stress other than
Yes.
simply medication, right?
Yes. Yes. And I want to make sure that I'm clear here. I'm not saying people stop your
Right.
medication. Not at
Exactly.
all. This is very helpful. Some people need it and continue as such. We're just offering alternatives that help,
Right.
and you can do both, and that even helps also even more. So,
Exactly.
yes,
And the key
important to
is for
mention that.
people to listen with their own discernment of what it is they're
Yes.
needing. And sometimes the medication
Hmm.
is a bridge to help you heal or reduce or relieve the symptoms for a little while you can access these other tools and see where that leads you and how you feel. So, yeah.
Absolutely. I've been through that twice. I've done that, and it does help you. Then you do the work, and then you recreate a new connection. And then when you phase out the medication, you've done some work, and you have a different relationship with your heart, with your brain, with your body.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
So it is in a way, as I'm just intuiting, you haven't gotten there yet, but is this a way of a kind of a reset? Is heart math and some of these techniques, do they offer people different ways to reset in their experience?
Yes, actually, it will inhabit is not the right word. So French Canadian here. Sometimes I might be looking for my words.
You're so
So,
amazing.
but
You're so amazing.
thank you, thank you. So it's just a matter of making your body used to reacting a different way. And I'm there. I'm arriving at coherence now anyway. So we'll get
Yes.
there.
Yes.
Yes. So we just want to give our body other alternatives on how to react. I'm
Mm,
going to say,
okay.
right? So we've discussed what is our normal reaction to stress.
Yes.
First of all, we perceive stress as safe or not.
Mm,
And when it's not, the limbic system, the sympathetic nervous system, the limbic brain takes over. The amygdala sends a system to the signal to the adrenal glands. Cortisol is released, and you go into fight, flight, or freeze mode. So
mm,
that's the stress process, basically.
yeah.
Now, what is coherence? And now I'm excited to get there because that's so beautiful. I just love it. When you're in coherence, actually what happens is that your heart rate and your breathing cycle synchronizes in some way. So what happens when you breathe? When you inhale, you take in oxygen and light and prana, but we'll just stick with oxygen.
Okay. I'm with you though. I'm with you.
So we breathe in oxygen. And so what the heart does is that it beats faster to help oxygenate the body more. So
Mm,
it brings more oxygen to the body. So it beats faster when you inhale.
mm,
And when you exhale, the heartbeat slows down.
wow.
So there's a variability in the heart rate between the inhale and the exhale.
Wow.
And that's what we call the heart rate variability,
Mm,
HRV.
mm.
That is how we measure coherence. That is very important.
It is very important.
Yeah, because in general, we're talking if somebody were to measure my coherence right now, you know, I'm talking, I'm breathing at the same time, I'm moving around, I'm thinking, and so I'm probably not really much in coherence right now. And that's fine, that's okay. But what happens is that the heart rate variability, let's say you map it with a computer or with a tool or an instrument and you measure it, it'll be more spikes like this.
Mm,
But when you go into coherence, the variability will be very smooth,
mm.
okay? And you'll like the heart rate will increase with inhale, decrease with exhale. And so there's the variability of the heart rate, and it'll be more of a curve, not necessarily
Yes.
perfect, but it will be more curvy than all these little spikes.
I felt the spikes, the pointiness of it, and then the smooth flow of it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
There you go. Exactly.
Yeah.
And what happens when we do this, and this is the fun part, it will trigger and engage the parasympathetic nervous system.
Mm,
Now, this is the part of the nervous system that calms us down. And the power of the parasympathetic nervous system is that it inhibits the sympathetic nervous system, the amygdala, and the whole stress process. So the minute you engage the parasympathetic, it inhibits the sympathetic nervous system. Therefore, it inhibits the stress process, amygdala, and everything.
mm. Wow.
So when we do that, when we increase our heart rate variability, we go
Mm.
into coherence, we have more resilience to stress. It will take more for us to trigger the stress process
Mm,
the more we practice it.
mm.
The more we practice it, there's a different physiological cascade of hormones that happens in the body when we go into coherence. So we'll talk about the technical, technique after. But right now, it's just when your body is more and more used to going into coherence, it will tend less and less to go into stress. So that's how you increase your resilience. And when you increase your resilience, you move, in the scale of um, safe stress and then danger of death,
Yeah.
you kind of shift things over towards safe a
Mm.
little bit. Things that were considered a danger and might have, stressed you out, clammy hands, all of a sudden, it's as if you have more distance to it.
Mm.
You're more grounded. That's what coherence will do because you will have more resilience. It will take more for you to go into the stress. You will keep more things into the safe zone, safe
Wow.
stress zone
Yeah.
when you practice coherence.
So,
So yeah, that's something that's very interesting, and that's what we want, right? We
yeah.
want to. We talked about earlier in the conversation, that things happen to us in our lives, and it's a matter of saying yes and of accepting, and so to be able to say yes and to accept, well, it's very useful to have access to our cortex. It's very able very useful to be clear of thought and grounded in our bodies and with the breathing. And the most important tool, even when we start to do a meditation or anything, when we want to ground, what do we do? Okay, we start for taking a few deep breaths. That's the first thing we do, right?
Right.
Even before we think about connecting with a root chakra to the ground, I mean, the first thing we do is to breathe. So it all starts with the breathing. It's our most precious tool,
Yeah.
and and that's why learning this technique really is wonderful. And the different elements of the technique that I will show you are all little things that will help activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which inhibits the
Right.
stress process. So all these different things alone by themselves work, but when you put them all together, it's
Mm.
even more powerful
Yes.
to help activate the parasympathetic nervous system and
That's
just
so
calms us
interesting.
down.
Did you hear that siren? And it's perfect because that's the stress.
It
Like
is.
that's exactly, somewhere near
Yeah.
you locally is a stress that they
Mhm.
need to respond to. And yet there's
True.
this calming remedy that's on its way, right? That's
Hmm.
what you're going to show us, the perfection of that.
Yes.
The universe knows how to illustrate that the best, right? Yeah. So
Mhm.
please, so share. So there's is it three steps? Did you say? Is it three things?
Well, I have five major elements
Okay.
to the technique, and
Okay.
it's okay, sometimes you concentrate on one thing, and because our body is not necessarily used to breathing like that. You have to give yourself a chance to get used to that. Now, the first element of the breathing is to be able to breathe from your belly instead of from your chest. And
Mm,
you'll notice generally when we talk, it happens here, we breathe here.
right.
But so some people have difficulty to breathe from the belly, but a good trick is to put one hand on your belly and one hand on your chest, and you just start breathing from your belly. When you do that, you feel that your hand on your chest won't move much, but the hand on your belly will.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one thing to practice. When you do that, you stretch the diaphragm.
Mm,
That's one of the things that triggers and engages the parasympathetic nervous system.
mm.
It's to breathe from the belly. I just do it and I feel it right away,
I
just
do
a
too.
calming down. Yeah. Yeah. The second thing, the second thing is to inhale through your nose and exhale through your mouth. That's the second element that triggers and engages the parasympathetic nervous system. So you breathe in through your nose in your belly, and you breathe out through your mouth slowly. So
Mm,
these are the most important things.
mm,
Heartmath mentions that the inhale should be 5 seconds and the exhale should be 5 seconds also.
mhm. Okay.
So it's equal. But other research proves that having the exhale longer than the inhale is also another element that engages the parasympathetic nervous system.
Really?
So a good ratio is 4:6, but I'm guessing, especially at the beginning, just concentrating on having the exhale
Mhm,
longer than the inhale.
mhm.
Yeah. Like you do it and I'll guide it. Breathe in one, two, three, four. Exhale one, two, three, four, five, six.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a good trick. And the releasing of the body for me is something that's very important in relaxing.
Mm,
So even like forgetting the 4 seconds, 6 seconds, what I do is I inhale with by the nose And when I exhale by the mouth, instead of controlling my breathing with my body, I let go of all of it, but I control my exhale just by the size of the hole of the mouth.
That's
So
well,
the only thing that I'm forcing to control the speed of the exhale is how much I open my lips, because
yes.
the rest of the body simply lets go on the exhale. So the body is completely letting go of the breath. The muscles are letting go, everything lets go, and you control the slowness or the speed of the exhale using your mouth. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm, brilliant.
And so just using the muscles of your mouth and counting to six, you go. And as long as the exhale is longer than the inhale, it doesn't have to be 4, 6. It could be 5, 7, 5, 8. It's okay. Whatever's better for you. And that's what you practice. So breathing in by the nose, exhaling by the mouth.
Mm,
It's breathing in from your belly,
yes.
not from the chest. It's timing it 4 on the inhale, 6 on the exhale.
Mm,
My fourth trick is that there's a meridian
mm,
just behind your front teeth on the top of the mouth. And if you push your tongue right behind your teeth, that hits the meridian that also engages the parasympathetic nervous system. So on the inhale, you push your tongue just behind your teeth on the top of your mouth, the roof of your mouth. And you do the technique that I just showed you. So that's another trick is the tongue, and you hit the meridian, activates the parasympathetic nervous system also. And when you practice that, you might notice that you have more saliva in your mouth.
mm,
That's an indicator that the parasympathetic nervous system is engaged.
wow.
You just salivate more.
Wow.
While doing that, the brain can actually go anywhere. It doesn't really matter. That's also one of the fun part of it. You know, when you have meditation, it says you have to empty your mind. You have to empty your mind.
Mm,
It's better if you do, but that's not absolutely necessary
wow.
because you're playing with the biology of your body here.
Yeah.
It will help with your brain and your mental health and all of that, but you're just concentrating your body on activating a different aspect of your nervous system
Mm,
and on triggering a physiological, like hormonal cascade in your body that it's not used to. It's used to the stress process, but now you go into the coherence process
mm,
and you get your body used to that. It's like creating new neural pathways in your brain also. So that's what you want to implement, that habit in your body to be able to do that more and more and more and more.
mm,
So, physiologically speaking, scientifically speaking, you do that 20 minutes twice a day for 6 weeks. And then you do it 30 minutes a day, hopefully for the rest of your life, because that's a gift that you would give yourself. And and that's how you inhabit. It's more important the first 6 weeks because, like I said, it's a new process for your body, and you want your body to get used to it. But then you can do half an hour. It can be in the morning, at night, whenever suits you. I mean, you don't want to add stress of having to do your coherence breathing to help reduce your stress. So
yeah.
if you skip a day, if you skip one of the two 20 minutes a day, I mean, it's okay, but it's just, it's like a key, you know, it's a key to unlock this new process in your body. So you do have to do it. You do have to get your body used to it. And the fifth element of the breathing, like I said, you don't have to think about anything, but I do. What I like to think is I like to imagine that I breathe in through the chest and breathe
Mm.
out through the chest. And that's when we get to the heart. Because when we do this coherence breathing, the heart is in coherence with your breathing. The heart, with this coherence process, becomes the conductor of your body instead of the amygdala, which reacts to everything. It's very good at that. I mean, it allowed us to survive all these millions of years. So, of course, it's very used to that.
Yes.
But it's time for something else, right?
Right. Yes.
Time for something else. And so we want to bring the power back to the heart by doing this breathing. We just bring the power back to the heart and we activate even more the electromagnetic field of the heart. You know, when we talk about connecting to Mother Earth and grounding,
Right.
what we're doing actually is merging the two magnetic fields. We're
Yes.
the Earth has a huge magnetic field, and our heart and our body has a huge magnetic field, the heart being the strongest one. So merging these two magnetic fields is what is connecting to the Earth and being grounded. And so this coherence amplifies and activates even more this magnetic field in your heart. And when you do it, eventually, when it's for me, what happens is when I do it, I feel automatically, I feel like my shoulders go back and my chest kind of opens up. It's just what happens, and you imagine yourself breathing in and breathing out through your chest, and you're engaging, you're giving power back to your heart. These brain cells that you have in your heart are activated also, and they send messages to the brain on how to act and how to work. You know, they have this new, I'm going to call it science, it's based on neuroscience. It's called multiple braining, M braining. They've
Wow.
discovered that we have cell brains in our intestines, in our heart, and of course in our brain. And there are techniques, there are coaching techniques, like therapy techniques, using these because when you listen to your belly and you feel something, well, this is actually where you have also your sacral chakra
Right.
and creative, and all your power is in your belly. So
Right.
creation and personal power, it's in your belly. So it's connected to your, uh, I'm going to say, intestinal brain. Then you have your heart brain and you have your brain. And you can play with that. They've discovered that and it's all connected. So that's why it's also important to take care of your diet and your intestinal flora. I don't know
Yes.
if that's a good word in English.
Yes.
Um, because your intestinal cells are so important and they're connected to your brain. They are brain cells.
Right.
So yeah. And, and so you increase your field, you bring power back to your brain, you increase your resilience to stress. Um, you know, when cortisol is released in your body, it reduces the amount of DHEA. That's another hormone in your body. I'm not going to tell you the scientific name. I don't know it by heart,
Yeah.
but it's considered a like a fountain of youth hormone. So when you increase DHA, you you basically reduce the speed at which you age and that your body ages. So when you add cortisol and you decrease DHEA,
Right.
you age, your body ages much faster. And you've seen that. You've seen people that have been under tremendous stress for a few years. It's like they get old so fast. Like after a few years, it's like they gain 10, 15 years. And that's what stress does. And
Yeah.
so
It's an
practicing
accelerant.
coherence.
It is.
I'm sorry?
It's an accelerant of that aging process where it seems
Exactly.
the coherence is, like you said, a fountain of youth.
Hmm.
Um, there's a youthfulness that flows inside us chemically if
Yes.
we can engage these tools and these practices. I was feeling as you were talking, we are conditioned and we do have these many habits, right? And habits can be changed. That's what we have to remember. Our conditioning is not our forever. It's just what we practice. So we can change those vibrational habits and we can form those new synaptic connections inside ourselves.
Yes.
When you first gave the instruction to put my tongue behind my teeth to access that meridian, I felt a little like patting my head and rubbing my stomach. It took me a second, but by the second or third time I tried it, it's amazing the neurons that must have fired because I was already adjusting for, that little glitch or whatever that just the synapses hadn't come together yet, but they're there. And that's what forming new vibrational habits, like you said, for 6 weeks, twice a day, 20 minutes a day, until it becomes a part of you. And then you do
Yes.
right once a day. And you even find, I mean, as a channel, breathing is very much a part of what I do with the
Hmm.
consciousness, connecting with
Hmm.
my heart center. And so even though I
Hmm.
don't have the language you have, it's a very similar patterning inside me. And I know that it's maybe it was second nature before, and now it's first nature. My friend
Hmm.
Renee Tainter, who's in some of the podcasts with us here at Whole Soul Mastery, talks about that a lot. First nature, right? It is first nature, but we've forgotten. So we just have to remind those brain cells in the gut and those brain cells in the heart and the brain cells in the
Yes.
brain to breathe together. We're just reminding them, and they say, "Oh, I remember this. Like, I remember this." And we remember because it feels good. We know we remember.
God, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. It is a
Mm.
gift we give back to ourselves, right?
Oh, absolutely. Don't do it because you have to. Do it because you deserve it, and you do deserve it. You know, you deserve to take care of yourself. You deserve to. I think that the first goal in life is to be happy. Some people, even some religions, will say that's very selfish. We're supposed to give to others, think of others first. But you know what? That's a trick. That's a little trap, I believe, because if you do take care of yourself first, if you consider yourself the most important person in the world and you connect to yourself and you develop all these connections within you, you will automatically feel the want and the need to help others and to give back because you will have taken care of yourself first. So it's so important to take care of ourselves. The most important thing in life is to be happy
Mm.
and to bring joy. And if you can move things over from like dangerous stress to safe stress,
Mm.
that's a gift you're giving yourself also because there are going to be less things in your life that are going to phase you off or put you in a bad mood or make you react emotionally through the stress process. So you'll just be more happy all the time, a
Yeah.
little bit every day, a little bit more.
Right.
Yeah, and if you
That's
have a
it.
chance to have good people to talk to, whether it's a coach or a therapist or anybody, you put yourself in a more open position to work on the things in your brain and thought processes. I'm going to say thought processes
Yeah.
that are not really helpful. You'll have more room to work on that because your body will fall into the stress process less. You'll have more resilience.
Right.
So, practicing coherence and continuing to work with
Mm.
someone um, to change, whether it's using NLP or traditional therapy. I mean, these are things that will just help you bloom even more and live a fuller, happier life, I think.
Yeah, for sure. That
Yeah,
resilience that comes from this practice, what we're talking about,
yeah.
and that energy of the youthfulness that comes
Hmm.
along with it. And I would even add, it's definitely calming, but I can experience inspiration as calming. It can be exciting, but can also be, you can feel this inspiration and interconnectedness. There's a harmonizing that happens inside us with the deeper insights that we have. and it all
Absolutely.
becomes more accessible. It all becomes more accessible where it felt like impossible before. That's what stress is somehow we're hitting a wall somewhere with our emotions, with somebody else, in a trigger, and all of a sudden it feels like impossible and it's over the top and there's just all
Hmm.
this pressure.
Hmm.
And when we access this energy and it's flowing inside us and we access those, did you say the DHEA is a hormone or a chemical?
It's a hormone. It's a
A
hormone.
hormone.
Yeah,
Well,
like the fountain of youth hormone.
it's a hormone. I like that, fountain of youth hormone. When we're accessing that, you can feel like our grounding, is so much more solid and safe and
Hmm.
secure. And we feel supported in whatever it is that we're facing. And that resilience does build over time. I definitely, in my life experiences, I have faced some gale force winds, and I know what it's like to at first feel blown over by them,
Yes,
just pummeled by
of
those
course.
because I didn't have the tools.
Hmm.
I might have even had the intuition that's inside all of us, that intuitive intelligence that's in our hearts. It's
Right.
in there. But if
Hmm.
we don't have the language and it's not in our brains, right? And it's not a practice, then we do sometimes get blown over. And then,
Hmm.
after being blown over a number of times, I remember reaching out for some other tools. I need a bigger toolkit, right? I needed more resources.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
over time, adding these tools to my toolbox, and you have these tools that you've just so generously and brilliantly helped us to understand. You made it so accessible in how you described it. I'm so grateful for that personally. And I know our
Oh, my
audience
pleasure.
really is so grateful for that. But then you also can add little things into it if I'm sure when you get deeper in this process and a feeling like ocean waves playing in the background, or how we do you make these tools yours. You make them what works for you. And that's also part of that creative process that unfolds, is once you have them, you can really shift them or add to them in some way.
Yes.
And it's so beautiful. And that's when we feel empowered, because also this isn't just, I know these tools work, I know these tools work. But then we also are empowered to enhance them, basically. And
Yes.
in how we're guided, and that's
Hmm.
how new modalities and new things get born, because somebody listens, somebody
Hmm.
says yes to that, whatever that insight is. And this is the magic, and it starts with what you've just shared. It's that breathing in the ways that you've talked about today. And it's also and I really loved how you talked in that fifth step about seeing us breathe directly through our heart centers, through our hearts, right? And I just wanted to add that electromagnetic field, when we do this self care, because I would call everything that you've talked about is self care.
Of
I
course.
would say it even goes another level to soul care. When we do it this consciously, we're taking care of the soul, we're taking care of our spirit, right?
Hmm.
And I want to say two things about that. The first is that there's the sense of, just like they say on an airplane, to put on your oxygen mask first. If there is a danger, a real life threatening danger, the instruction they give to hundreds of passengers over, thousands and millions of people who travel, is to put your oxygen mask on first, so you can be a source of support and whatever other people might need when you're breathing properly and when you're getting that care. And I think that's very much what self-care and soul care is we're giving this to ourselves. And then our electromagnetic field, right, that's connected with the earth's electromagnetic field, we're pulsing and radiating this calmness, this serenity, this grounding, to others, right? And that's a bigger service than trying to put out fires, right? Like whack-a-mole, Yeah.
Marie, thank you. That's one of the things I wanted to talk about exactly, is the impact of the field we create with others,
Yes.
because this is contagious. And people talk about the aura in a way, but for me, like this is a space that you create for yourself and for others. And um, the law of attraction says it, you will attract people that vibrate to the same energy. And if that's the field that you create, and you create a strong, I'm not even sure I like to use the word healthy, but a strong field, positive field that is coherent with
Yes.
your heart,
Yeah.
then you will attract this type of energy in
Right.
your field, people around you, and people that do not vibrate to that energy will just not come. It'll just something that will flow naturally.
Exactly.
Yes,
And they just
yes.
sort of fall away, or they don't even attract. If they did come in, they come in and they're like, wow, there's nothing here for me. Like this
Hmm.
doesn't, this isn't right. And they go on
Hmm.
their
Hmm.
way because they're looking for who they, really are a match to energetically.
Yes,
It is so powerful. And that electromagnetic field, I also know it's sometimes described as the toroidal field. It has
it
this
is.
this kind of patterning, if people can see this, right? The energy comes in and it goes right through, and it kind of goes right through our field, right? Like up and
Yes.
around, like a donut that's spinning.
I like to cut an apple. When you cut an apple and you see that shape,
Yeah.
for me that's basically what it is, and it grows like that, absolutely, and things flow in that field.
Yes.
So by practicing its strength and its vibration, increasing its vibration to a healthy positive vibration, I mean, if everything is energy, right, everything will just flow more in your body. It's very healing
It's
to
very,
have that feel flowing.
it is very healing. And and I think the other thing I just wanted to say, I love the points we just make, so I'm in that energy. But I remember when we're not nurturing ourselves, right? When we're not um, in some way becoming aware of this coherence and this way of connecting and the breath and the grounding that it all brings to us. I remember this teacher, speaker, author, Sonia Choquette. She's published,
Yes.
spoken, yeah, with Hay House. And she talked about, I went to an I Can Do It conference in 2007, actually, for Louise Hay's 80th birthday party celebration. It was amazing. It was magnificent. And it was down in Florida. And I listened to Sonia Choquette
Sonia Choquette.
speak, and she was marvelous. And one of the things she said, though, and she's written about this in her books, if we don't make a space inside our body temple for our spirit, she actually says, and she's a channel and a speaker and intuitive, she says our spirit leaves. I mean, it doesn't leave forever, but it definitely leaves and kind of goes
Doesn't
outside
have room.
us because we're not a vibrational match to what our spirit needs. We're not coherent with
Yes.
ourselves and with
Yes.
our soul. And so it'll be,
Yes.
and she says, I think she said that she did readings on people that their spirit was like way outside their body because
Hmm.
they hadn't cultivated this embrace, this
Hmm.
womb space, this place of creation, this place of grounding and welcoming energy. And as people have listened to our conversations today, what we're talking about, it's not hard. It's a vibrational habit. It's a practice, and it's a choice, right? It's a choice.
It's a choice.
So we can face those experiences that stress us out. And all of us can probably name a number of stresses in our present daily lives as an individual and at the global collective level, right? And we can imagine there are probably some times that our spirit is like, I'm out of here, right? Right?
God, yes.
On, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
And then when we have some kind of awakening, when we've, whatever it is, whether it's we have an illness and we're on medications, or we're feeling like we don't have options, something generally catalyzes this curiosity inside us to want
Mm.
to acquire some new tools, some new skills,
A door opens.
and the door opens. And a lot of what I found in all of the tools that I've acquired and that you have as well is that many of the things that we need to relearn and remember are actually fairly simple. The
Hmm.
breath, just by breathing from our bellies, step one. It is step one. And just that can have life changing positive impacts and blessings that come from that. And so that is the invitation to people listening to this podcast number one with you, Patrick, because hopefully we'll have more. It's so fabulous to connect with you, and you are such a beautiful conduit. Talk about a conductor. You're such a beautiful conduit of making this accessible to people that there's a lot of people that feels like that is a stressful thing to add to my list to do. Oh, now I have to figure that.
Right.
and you've
Yes.
made it so accessible in the 5 steps that you've given, and even the way you talked about the different kinds of stress. I'm retaining it in a way that I never have before, that I can even, be in this conversation with you and right there with you. It's because of
Hmm.
how you channeled this information, how you brought this in
Hmm.
to our connection today. So I'm so grateful, and I hope this is one podcast of many. And for our listeners, this is an invitation for you. This is an opportunity for you to be aware of that you have choices. We all have choices in the stress all around us in the world right now. We can be in a world of stress and simultaneously be in coherence inside ourselves. And that
Hmm.
might seem like an oxymoron. How can you be in coherence in a completely stressful, or might even say at times toxic world? And yet it's absolutely true, right? It's absolutely true, but it takes the tools and it takes the commitment and it takes making the choice. And as we started, it takes saying yes, right?
Yes.
Saying yes. And
What?
sometimes that's just saying yes to feeling better. I am
Hmm.
saying yes to a new path and a new way of feeling better. And I'm willing to be curious and to uncover those insights from many different messengers and teachers. And the profound effect of opening our lives up to the possibility of the greatness we can feel inside ourselves is tremendously healing just in the yes. Just in the yes alone. I think we open and breathe better. Feel like a no. Just watch
Hmm.
that no. And somehow
Hmm.
yes.
Yes.
It's interesting to watch
Absolutely.
how the breath works with those two words. Yeah,
Hmm.
I'm sure that's no accident, right? Yeah,
That's true. It's true. Oh yeah, words and letters have energy to them
they
for
do.
sure. Definitely.
Yeah.
And I'm so excited about this technique because I always was someone that was very rational, scientific uh, before this awakening. And I'm so happy now that the two are working together a little bit more. But for the people, it's stressful enough to add things to the list to do of things to do, and I totally understand that. But I really invite everybody to go onto the Artmath website and read more. They have videos. They have very interesting, simple to understand texts about coherence, and you'll see all the scientific proof that's there. So for those who don't really believe in necessarily in energy or in spirituality, there's so much scientific proof, and when you read through it, you realize that it does go to the very edge of spirituality, like I said, because everything's connected. Like we talked about the field, we get there eventually, and it just links beautifully to it. So that's what I find that's interesting, exciting. It
Yeah.
For me, it does match the spiritual and the scientific
Yes.
aspects of myself.
Yes.
So
And I think a
yeah.
lot of people are seeking, and that's it. I mean, to me, it's such a powerful bridge for people who've only been up in their rational minds, living
Mhm.
from the head space,
Bridge.
not in the heart space. Heart math is a bridge for so many people. And
Yes.
I know my partner too has used it, these insights in her work in the prison with many, many incredible people who have activated, but this was their bridge from being
Hmm.
full
Hmm.
skeptic, right? Where's the data? This sounds way woo woo to me, to actually seeing the data, receiving the meditations, accessing these tools of coherence and changing their lives. We are inserting and including a brief demonstration here of the coherence breathing technique using a HeartMath sensor that provides real time data to illustrate its effects.
Yes. So it's interesting to actually be able to see it in action, the coherence. Um, ArtMath sells a few products, a few tools that helps us to monitor coherence when someone's practicing. You can actually monitor and check. What it uses is a little sensor that you just pinch on your earlobe. And I'm going to start the session so you can see what not being coherence is. And the tool shows you, at first it shows you at the bottom, you'll see my pulse. So that's my heart beating. And on the top of the screen, you see coherence, and you'll probably see spikes. It's all over the place. And at the bottom right, you have the percentage of the time I'm in low coherence, the red section, medium, blue section, or high, the green section. So
Wow.
right now I'm in the red. I'm not doing the breathing. There are spikes, and might fall a little bit into the blue. But the minute that I start doing the breathing, as you'll see me starting to do the breathing as I've shown you. You'll see it level out and become smoother. All right. So just to look at it a little bit, I'm going to stop. That's my heart rate variability. So you inhale, the heart rate increases. When you exhale,
Right.
decreases. And so you see that it becomes smooth,
Yeah.
smoother and smoother the more I'm in coherence a long time. At first, and that's how it usually is, whether it's in stressed or when you're not in coherence, it's a bit all over the place. So by increasing, and the more you'll do it, the higher the peaks, the lower the lows, and you'll have it'll become bigger, the difference between the two, so the variability itself will become
Mm.
higher.
Right.
And that's what's interesting.
Wow.
And that's when you develop, the whole system goes into coherence with the DHEA going higher, and the parasympathetic nervous system taking over. And so
Right.
that's
Beautiful.
how we measure it. So it's a very interesting tool. When I have clients or people that I help come over, and we can, they have their own little profile, and we can see session by session how it evolves and how they reach coherence. You have the level of challenge here. Took a bit longer for me to go into coherence because I was kind of at a high level, but we started at a low, and just it's very interesting. There are different tools in there, but it's just to give you an idea of how you measure it and what it looks like, scientifically speaking.
And for many people, it helps them bridge the gap. It helps them see the science.
Yes.
All that we're talking about actually has a measurable illustration, right? And
Hmm.
that is truly the beauty of one of the amazing things of heart math is they found a way to illustrate this to people so we could really see that we are energetic beings and
Hmm.
and there is actual data that can be collected that reveal us to us, that
Hmm.
reveal us to us, right? That show where we're breathing maybe less in coherence and when we're breathing in that more unified, coherent state. And I just got calmer watching you breathe.
Yes.
Even that is therapeutic because you do we it's I didn't say this on the when we were talking before, but that belly breathing, animals do it naturally. I see my dogs, my cats, that's how they sleep. They belly
Hmm.
breathe. They must breathe first nature, the organic nature of coherence. And
Hmm.
it's
Hmm.
we likely, I don't know if HeartMath talks about that, but babies, I'd imagine, do belly breathe. We probably come in breathing.
It's a good question. I'm not sure. I don't remember learning this. I don't know.
Yeah, it's something to explore. But I definitely see it
Hmm.
in my animals. That's the only breathing they do is that deep belly breathing.
Yes.
And they're far less stressed than I can say even I am, right? Right? The wisdom of the animal kingdom, they never forgot, they never disconnected. And we have to learn how to reconnect and breathe in those organic rhythms again. That was fantastic to see that visually. So grateful.
My pleasure to share.
Thank you, Patrick.
You're welcome. Hmm.
And I'm so grateful for your voice, where you give the messages of HeartMath. And is it heartmath.com? Is that the website? I'll put it up.
Oh, yes. And if you want, I'll also send you the 5 steps
Yes,
that I have, and you can add it below the video if you
yes.
want, and some
I can put
information to
that in the
contact me if
yes,
you also want, because I can, assist people. I do coach or guide people.
yes,
That is a service that I do offer. So if people want to have questions or if they want some assistance, it'd be my pleasure to share this, because that's, like I said, by by learning all these things and from growing, now I just want to give back and
yes.
assist people and help them and become a better their optimal selves. Yeah.
Yes, their optimum selves. And there's that phrase that has been coming through me for a number of years to be the extraordinary exponential of our greatest potential. That's their optimum selves. And
Yes.
we are creator beings who crave expansion. I mean, our souls crave this expansion. And yet, I think coherence is like, a foundational element to living that bigger life that so many of us, that more joyful life or more balanced life that so many
Hmm.
people desire. And this conversation is like vital, essential. It's like step one, in the journey from living a reactive, like the life of that reactive creator, which you would probably say
Hmm.
is the limbic brain. It's that, that fight of all those energies, to being a conscious creator, right? An inspired creator. And I think that's also, once we access that coherence, that's what amplifies the field. When we can be in that space of inspiration and creation, and stress is floating by, but we watch it. We're grounded inside. We're breathing from our bellies, right? We're receiving, and the proper nervous system, right, is operating, and that we are in that space of grace. And that's a good note to maybe close this out for now. But I know there's a lot more we can talk about, and you have just a beautiful skills that you've acquired, and then also intuition. And when you're connected with your heart, that's who we have here in these podcasts, people who have accessed that intuitive
Hmm.
intelligence, and who in their own ways, in their own lives, engage that coherence. And then we amplify that through whole soul mastery to the world. That's what we're doing. We're beaming it out. So receive, receive, receive. Right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
join us in this vibrational habit, because I'm now going to do more of what those 5 steps more consciously. I do it intuitively, but now I have the language. When you have the language, it gives further empowerment to the practice, and
Brings it to consciousness.
it brings it to consciousness. Exactly.
Yes.
So thank you, Patrick, so much.
And thank you, Marie. Thank you for the platform you offer people to share, and for all your work. And I can feel your your such beautiful good intention that you have to really help and to share and to connect people and into good energies and to bring us to a better world. So thank you, Marie.
Thank you. And I really want to thank our listeners. We didn't mention that, but that energy of appreciation and gratitude, I'm sure is in the heart math messages. Maybe that's even another conversation that we can really focus in more on that and some of those things. But I appreciate everybody who listens and finds these podcasts and shares it with people who can benefit from these messages. I think right now our world needs to breathe.
God, yes.
World needs
Take
to
off the mask and breathe.
take off the mask and breathe and allow the coherence instead of obstructing that organic first nature process.
Yes.
So, thank you for breathing with us today. And thank you for entering this state of, or at least becoming aware of these tools of coherence, of achieving that inside yourself. And I'm going to try out the 6 weeks. I'm going to see if I can, commit to that consciously and just see how that and see what doors it opens. I mean, that's
Yes.
what it does. When we're in coherence and the electromagnetic field is flowing, magic happens, miracles
Mhm.
happen, and miracles become first nature. Miracles
Yes.
become our experience. And that's how we can be smiling and grounded and breathing and fluid and flowful right now, Patrick and I, while all the other stuff is going on in the world, because this is where the truth is. Like,
Mhm.
this is where the light is. This is where the harmony and the grace is. So let's all see if we can practice this grace through the month of December 2020 and beyond, because I know people will find this video even years later, right? But
Mhm.
it's important that we're grounding it now because we're seeding it in the years to come. The coherence can be maybe one of the first things that children are taught. Wouldn't that be nice, right? Talk about changing the world.
Yes.
Talk about,
Learning how to breathe when you're a kid, that just be life changing.
yeah, life,
God,
planet
yes.
changing, paradigm changing,
Oh
everything,
God, yes.
right? It
Everything.
changes everything if everything started with,
Yeah.
right? So there
Yes.
we have it. You heard it here
Yes.
first in Wholesome Mess,
Yes.
right? With Truly. Tune in more for more amazing podcasts. And you can find us at Wholesome Mastery on YouTube. You can find these videos at Color the Magic on YouTube. You can find more positive messages. The videos are not on our website, but there's other things there for inspiration. And so you can find us at wholesomemastery.com and on a variety of other platforms that I'm going to put the links in the description section below. So thank you, everyone. Until next time, we send our blessings. Namaste.